Welcome to another Vibrant Music Teacher Chat, where today we're talking about finding your work-life balance as a private music teacher. So we're getting a bit zen today. We're going to find a way to balance all of the things, or at least get ourselves on the road to balancing our lives and our work so that we can feel more grounded and happier, ultimately, as music teachers. So let's get started. Well, good morning to Faye and to Morgan. If anyone else is watching live, I see lots of others in the room there, so please do say hello. Let me know where you're joining us from and anything you struggle with or are awesome at in the area of work-life balance. It's interesting talking about this particular concept today because I'm about to go away, so it's very appropriate. It wasn't planned. Nothing is that planned at the moment, am I right? But yeah, I'm about to take a few days off myself and travel a couple of counties over. Don't worry, I'm not doing anything risky. And so I'm rebalancing my own life in a way, and we're talking today about work-life balance. There's some other things we want to get to too. First of all, I want to say welcome to those of you joining live because this is our new time. So there might be some of you who don't normally get to watch live when we were on Wednesdays and we used to do it an hour earlier. This is our new time for the YouTube lives, for our chats here, and it's going to be at this time going forward. So if you've made it live here today, awesome! I hope you can make it back again next week and the following week and in perpetuity. I'm foreseeing being able to stick to this time as our set schedule, if possible, hopefully possible, for the whole of this academic year. We'll see how it goes, but that's the intention because it will fit with my new schedule, which I'll be starting very shortly as my students return to the studio in these unusual times. They're going to be coming back in. So lots of stuff going on, but these Monday chats are going to stay on Monday for the foreseeable future at 4 p.m. my time. That is whatever time it is for you right now. So yeah, we're going to be talking about work-life balance today, but before that, I'm actually going to do a tour of the new games inside the library just to give you a sense of those and some of the new features there, because I didn't do that last week and I should have. So we're going to do that first, then we're going to dive into work-life balance, and then we're going to get to a couple of our web reviews. Lee said, good morning from Alabama. Good morning to you, Lee. I totally struggle with balancing teaching and home life. It's so hard to turn off my teaching brain, especially when I'm even looking at Facebook. I see so many ideas. I totally get that, Lee. Our phones are the demons here, really, aren't they? Morgan said, I live alone, have minimal required schedule other than lessons, cats' needs, grocery store, and a part-time job. I often fiddle around into the wee hours with teaching stuff, reading, podcasts. Yeah, I think a lot of us are in the same boat, Morgan, in terms of continuing at all sorts of hours of the day to plan and scheme and come up with fun ideas. Yeah, fantastic. Love that, Juliet. Thank goodness for the sea. I'm jealous of your hot Sussex. It is not hot here in Dublin. Hopefully it's coming this direction, even though that's the wrong direction for the wind to be normally blowing, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I'm going to do that tour of the new games just quickly. It'll only take us a few minutes because I know members who are watching and people who are curious about stuff inside the membership will want to see the latest games and get my take on them and where they came from, as well as a couple of features that we've added that if you missed last Sunday's email or just haven't read it fully yet, you might have missed those. And we're going to talk some more about work-life balance. So you can keep adding your questions and queries and thoughts about that into the comments. And then we're going to get to those web reviews. I've picked out Mindy Rawlin today and innovativemusicstudio.com. So we're going to take a look at those. But first up, the games. So here we go. This is the VMT library. If you haven't seen it before, this is what it looks like. Lots of members live today, so they'll be very familiar with this printable library. So up the top, always before you select anything, is always the latest game. So it's organized by default in order of publication before you select anything or use any of the filters. So the first thing I wanted to note was our latest issue of Bright Notes. If you haven't checked that out yet, it's a really good one. It's all about planning, and Bright Notes is our members only magazine that compiles together the blog content with some other bonus stuff into a downloadable magazine so that members can read it on the go in a nice, beautiful format set up for reading on an iPad or printing out if you prefer to do that. Then we have the latest games. So I'm going to go through these one by one. The first one is Gelato. I called it Gelato because it's an icebreaker game. And this is a spinner. By the way, for those of you who aren't members, you won't be aware that all of our games that we released recently work in online lessons as well as in-person lessons. So this one is no different. This is the printed out version in the photo here, and it's a spinner that you put together yourself. However, we also have a spinner on the page here that you can use to literally just open the page and use this with your students. It has suggestions, fun little icebreaker things. Some are musical, some aren't. Some are just ice related and for fun. And then you can also download a Decide Now version so that you don't have to input these yourself into Decide Now if you want to use it there. That's an iPad app, and that's a really handy way to use this as well. So that's Gelato. That's a really fun one for welcoming back students, especially new students, and doing group lessons, as I know many teachers are getting back into that now. The next one is probably my favourite. It's hard to pick favourites, but it probably is mine, and that's Rainbow Race. The inspiration for this one was the fact that many of us have discovered that through our online lessons, we've discovered that our students actually are a bit confused about the terms line and bar or measure and phrase, and that navigating the score has become a challenge. So this game is to help them with that. It's sort of a discovery game, so you can help them out with it, and it'll get them really clear on all of those things that they need to navigate the score. Of course, that's absolutely really important for any student, but when we're teaching online, I think many of us have felt the need for them being able to go to bar 4 when we say bar 4 or measure 4. It's been a real challenge, and not mixing up bars and lines. It only takes a second to correct them, of course, but it does waste a bit of time. So this is the perfect antidote for that. Next up, we have the very long awaited transposing challenges. So the transposing challenges are an element of my challenge board, which many of you will be familiar with. This is a set of different challenges that I have for my students that they can work their way through. It's a way to motivate them to practice things that they might not otherwise, as well as just systematize the things that we need to teach, like scales and chords and stuff like that, to systematize them in a way that's more creative and fun and gamified and not associated with any particular exam system. And transposing has been something that's been on the board for ages, and I get questions about it from teachers. And my answer has always been, you need to decide the levels yourself, because I haven't finalized ones that I could share with you. It was all based on my students' own repertoire. And you can still absolutely use it that way too. You can adapt any of these challenges to suit you because they're not prescriptive in terms of the board and the stickers. However, I wanted to provide a suggestion for how you could use it without any particular method book. And I think the best use for that is to do this as a way to play by ear with your students. And so that's what we've put together here. They're all pieces that are kind of go-to play by ear pieces that many teachers will use, like Hot Cross Buns and Heart and Soul, but they're put into a leveled system with certain keys to transpose them into, so that students can be building up their transposing and playing by ear skills in a way that is more structured. This is something that many of us dive into, especially at the start of lessons, I feel, like in the first few months of a student being on our studio, and then we kind of forget about it or it falls by the wayside. And so this is a great way to put a system together all around that. So that's transposing challenges. That's a pretty big release. It's 5 different levels of those. Then we have metric match. This is something not related to online lessons that teachers have been asking me for recently, and that is a way to teach and reinforce metric counting for when students either transition or meet it right at the start of lessons, doesn't really matter which one. And so this is the first game, this is the first matching style game that I put together in an online Google Slides version. So I have got a video there that will teach you how to use it. So no worries about the tech or anything like that, you will be able to use the online version. It's a matching game with numbers, and you can see a pair there, matching them up. Simple concept, works great in online lessons and really good for reinforcing metric counting. Then we have random reminders. This was mostly inspired by a student of our content manager, Sarah. Many of you will know Sarah. And she had a student who, what was the particular thing he needed to work on? Oh, dynamics, I think. So she had a student who, one of his end of year goals at the start of summer was to improve his dynamics. So he was a transfer student, he'd always neglected them in the past, he knew it was a problem, and yet he was having trouble remembering to actually do it. And rather than her just saying dynamics the whole time, we wanted to make a game out of it so that we could help him to reinforce it, something he was already on board with doing, but couldn't remember to do. So these are fun little suggestions for reminders the teacher can give that are not just you saying dynamics or curve your fingers or lift your wrists or feet on the floor or whatever it is your student forgets but can do, is capable of doing, and is on board with doing, wants to improve at, but they're just forgetting. So these are really fun. You have to be willing to get a little bit silly, but that's true of most of VMT. Teachers can't take themselves too seriously. And then we have Squishy Squash. This one some of you will have seen on the blog. It's a bonus game that we put out. So normally it's 5 games, but this is really the 6th. And it is a a game to work on note values, terms, and music reading. So multi-concept is what I mean. And it's great for review for beginner to grade 1 students. I would be using this with most returning students after the summer break who've been learning for like a year or two if they're younger, to get them back on track, because we all know that summer slide happens, right, where they just forget about everything during the summer, especially in those first couple of years. Then we have this last one, I'll just mention it since we are here, is actually from a blog post quite a while ago, but we didn't have it in the library and we were updating the post, so we've put that in with more instructions and VMT-ified it, so that could be a fun one. Actually, that would be great to screen share, to work on ledger lines and staff lines with your students, so I'll let you explore that one yourself. Alright, so that's our tour of the latest games. Any questions about those, let me know. Oops. The other thing I wanted to show you was our new categories. So the player numbers, if you haven't seen this yet, we now have up to 8 plus. So it used to go up to 3 and then it was just plus. So anything over 3 was just more vague. Now it's specific numbers up to 8, so you can ensure you have the right number of players for the game. And then, more exciting, probably for most people right now, is that we have this new screen option filter for the type of game, so that you can filter out all the ones that have an on-screen version of the games. And we're adding to this every month. Lots of fun ones coming out next month as well. Alrighty, so those are the new games. Let me know if you have any questions about them. And about work-life balance as we dive into that area. There's a question there about the games. Diane, I'm not sure of the context for your question, so I'm going to answer it a few different ways. That spinner I showed is on the VMT page, so it's inside the membership. It's already filled out for you. If you want a spinner app more generally for screen sharing, I would suggest using Decide Now. There's a few ways you could do it, but you could use Decide Now, which is an iPad app, and screen share your iPad. That's a really handy way to do it, and it is a beautiful looking spinner. Sheila, games at in-person lessons to make them touch less? If so, how? I'm going to have more details on this soon, Sheila. Definitely something we're going to dive into as some of us return to in-person lessons. But to give you more general advice right now, because I know everything can be quite urgent at the moment, my general guidance would be use the screen versions of the games the same way you would in online lessons, just in a room. It'll allow you to do it the simplest way possible, honestly. And it means minimal contact, obviously no contact. You can even have several devices joining in if you want, or you can just literally share your screen, like have it up on a big monitor and just you do the movements, but they give all the answers. And I think that's a simple way to get started with your in-person lessons with social distancing. That's what I'm planning in a general sense. That's how I'm planning to go with that direction. Yeah, Lee, decide now. So fun, right? It's great. Okay, let's talk about work-life balance. The first thing I want to say about work-life balance is that it is yours. So before we get into any discussion here in the chat or I give you any recommendations, I want you to know that it is specific to you. It's all about you and what feels right to you. And I don't want you to let anyone else tell you what the correct balance of things is. If for you that is working 60 hours a week, it's probably not, but if it is, that's fine. That's your answer. If you come to the realization that that really truly does feel balanced for you, that is okay. If it's 10 hours a week, that's okay too. Okay? Okay? Because it really is so personal. It is based on so many different factors, your stage of life, your priorities, and your chemistry, your actual makeup as a human. Some people actually suit working more hours. Some people suit sleeping less. In a lot of cases, they're lying to themselves, but some people do actually suit less sleep than others. So it is based on your personality and your definition of balance and of success and all of these things. It's completely personal. You need to know yourself, and that takes time, for sure, and it takes some work. And you need to know your goals as a teacher and as a business owner and as a person. The second note that I wanted to make about this term work-life balance is that it's balance. It's called balance. Flamingos are our sort of mascot, our unofficial emblem of VMT. And that's because we're all about balance. Flamingos, as you know, stand on one leg so beautifully. Humans don't tend to do that as easily, but we can cultivate that balance and find it for ourselves. The thing about a balance, though, is that it actually is always slightly off balance. That's the truth. It's something that we tweak and adjust and fine tune again and again and again. And we need to become okay with that. We need to accept that it's always going to oscillate back and forth and change a little bit, and the definition of it is going to change. So that's going to require adjusting as well. It will always need to be rebalanced. So I want your goal to be to only need micro adjustments. Don't set your goal to feel perfectly balanced at all times. Just like our goal should not be to be ecstatically happy at all times. If we're sort of ecstatic in this hyper state all the time, it's unsustainable, and it's unrealistic, and it probably isn't a particularly good sign. We want our goal in terms of happiness to feel satisfied, right? To feel content, maybe. And for balance, it should be to only need micro adjustments rather than huge adjustments. Huge adjustments are an indicator that we've gone so far off kilter that we had to change an enormous amount to get us back. And that's an indicator that we're not paying attention to all the little signs along the way. But micro adjustments are an indicator that you are paying attention. Right? That you are in tune with what you want and what you need and what's happening. And that's a great thing. So try to make your goal micro adjustments, and try to have some cues that things are going off kilter. I'll give you some examples of those. For me, it's if I snap at someone. I generally don't snap at people. So if I do, if I'm getting irritated by something that I know is not a big deal, like not angry about something that actually matters, but irritated, that means something's wrong. I'm not looking after something. I'm working too much. I'm not working on things that I'm excited about. I'm sleeping too little. I'm eating the wrong things. I'm not looking after my health in some other way. Something is wrong if I'm snapping at someone. Maybe that's not true for you. Maybe you're snappy in general. That's fine. But you need to find something that means that for you. For some people, it's I'm missing family dinners. Like more than on occasion. I've missed several this week. Okay, well, that's an indicator. If that's one of your priorities, that's an indicator that things are going off balance because you're missing those family dinners and they're really important to you. Do you see what I mean? Try to come up with one cue. There's not going to be just one. So come up with one now in the chat that would mean that things are off balance for you. What would one defining factor be for you? Would it be family dinner? Would it be missing a baseball game of your nephew? Would it be not getting to sleep in on Sunday morning? What is your little sign, your flashing light, maybe your gentle blinking light that says things are not quite right now? You need to pay attention. What is that for you? Let me know in the comments. Oh, Tanis, I love that. My neck and shoulders begin to feel super tight. So many people carry so much tension there, right, Tanis? That's so true. Jimmy said feeling rushed and panicked. Yes, that feeling of panic. Now, it was completely normal, I will say, at the start of the pandemic, or maybe if something has changed right now for you and you're going through a feeling of panic, a period of panic, that is fine and normal and that happens sometimes. But if you're feeling that way and nothing particularly is causing it, no pandemics are happening, then I think Jimmy is right. That's a great indicator. Teresa, neglecting exercise, that would be one of mine too. If I'm missing exercise and there's no good reason for it, like I haven't injured my ankle or something, that's not a good sign. Joanna, not cooking for myself. Yes! Ordering a whole bunch of takeaways or something, if that's not something you normally do, if you love spending time cooking, that can be a great indicator. I love that. All these suggestions are so good, everyone. Yes, Christy, that's almost what I'm talking about first with the irritated at minor things. Grumpy that I have to teach when normally it's a joy. Right? It should be a joy. Not all the time, not every second of every minute, but you shouldn't be going into a teaching day going, oh, right? That shouldn't be how we feel about our profession at all, and it will come through in our teaching, in the quality of what we're doing. Okay, so many of us are self-employed, we work at home, we work for several different studios. We're not in traditional careers. Let's just put it that way. Most of us. We're not working at a big school where our job looks like a school teacher's job would look or an office worker's job would look. It doesn't look like that. We're working maybe 3 to 7 in the evening, or we're working early in the morning, then we have a giant break, and then we're working in the evening again. We have odd schedules, and a lot of us own our own businesses, micro businesses with just us as an employee. And we have a lot of different things in our lives. A lot of people have that, but it's less defined for us. Most of us, a lot of us, are teaching at home. And when we're in that position, and this is true, I think, for everyone, but I think it's more true for us, and it's something I've been very frustrated by, is I don't think we should be calling it work-life balance. And I think I might ruffle a few feathers here, because I think many teachers want it to be, okay, I put my work in this box and then I put my life over here. And if that works for you, great. I'm not trying to tell you to do it a different way. But I don't see my life as a work-life balance. I see no division there. And I know people want to put that back in for me. and draw that line. But I actually prefer the idea of life balance because there are things in my work that honestly don't feel like work at all. They are my favorite thing to do. And not in an obsessive compulsive I must work all the time way. In a I genuinely love doing this and this is how I'd prefer to spend my time. Not everything in my work, but a lot of it. And there are things in life, we all have things in our life that we don't particularly want to do. We don't want to sit down and fill in a giant form of bureaucracy nonsense. We don't want to, I don't know, drive to the shops. I don't mind shopping. But if you hate it, that's kind of work that's in the life category. And with our work the way it is, with the bleed through that we have between all these different areas of life, I prefer to just think of it as life balance. Let me know if you agree with this or if you think I'm bonkers, but it makes sense to me to just think of it as a life balance. And yeah, that includes some things that are work and some things that are play and some things that are dull, but I don't make any money from them, right? We all have all these different aspects to balance. So, how I prefer to think about it is life balance, and those indicators are indicating that my life is off balance. Because, as we said, if I'm if I'm getting irritable, right? Let's take that one as an example. If I'm feeling that way, sometimes it might be that I'm working too much, or that I'm letting a parent get in my head too much, nagging at me about something or other in business. Sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's that I didn't exercise, and that's the culprit. Sometimes it's that I didn't cook my own food. I had takeaway and it was just really bad for me, and it's making me grumpy the next day. So, we can't call that work-life balance. I don't need to look at my irritability and say, my work-life balance is off, my work is going up and my life is going down. No, it's all my life. Especially as people who have such a vocational profession in a lot of cases. I don't always like that word because it kind of maybe it implies too much that we shouldn't be making money, and we absolutely should. But none of us do this just to make money, do we? If we did, we'd made a really poor choice and we weren't very well informed when we went into teaching if we thought we were going to be rich. So we have other reasons for doing this as well as money. And there's so much to balance within our life. Let's just see the whole picture. That's what I think anyway. Charlotte agrees with me. Thank you, Charlotte. Great to hear that. Teresa too. Yeah, Cindy, there's two different aspects there too, right? But there's also things in your regular life that you don't love and love, right? Okay. So that's how I see it anyway. Hit the like button if you agree with me, or if you just find this video valuable. It helps spread the word to other teachers so that they can find this and YouTube suggests it to them as something that might be useful. And they can join our little community bubble over here on YouTube and join in with the chats here, which makes it all valuable, more valuable for all of us. Last area I want to look at in terms of our life balance, as we're going to call it. I'm going to leave the title of this video as work-life balance because, yeah, that's what people call it. So they'll know what I mean. But we're going to call it life balance from now on. So to keep our life balance, part of that is controlling our work that we have to do. And a big part of how I control that, how I stay balanced, apart from those cues that things are going off balance, is rules. Simple, clear-cut rules are honestly the biggest game changer. If you don't have them for yourself in how you run your business or your life, I think this is something you should consider if you constantly find yourself being thrown off. So what I mean by rules are things like, I only answer the phone between X and X. I don't have that particular rule because people don't call me. And also I don't really answer the phone. Shh. I leave my phone on silent basically all of the time and just call people back. But I don't have anything that would particularly be an emergency. Like I don't have little kids or anything, so I'm able to do that. However, if you do have certain hours that you want to accept office calls, I think that's absolutely a great idea to put a rule in place, but call it a rule, okay? And make it specific and clear cut. Another thing you might want to put a rule on, I think a lot of us could benefit from this, is a planning time limit. So I plan my lessons between 10 a.m. and 12 on Mondays, and if you set that limit on it, you honestly will get it done in that time. But there's that rule, right? Oh, what's it called? We're talking about rules, and now I'm confusing you talking about rules, but like a law, like Parkinson's laws, but it's not that one. Anyway, it's that the work will expand to fill whatever time is available. Someone can look that up, the name of it, or if they know it off the top of their head, and let me know what it's called. But it's like one of those laws that are out there, like the Peterson principle, you know, how people will get promoted to their level of incompetence. So work does expand to fill the time available in a lot of cases. And so just setting that planning time limit, like I only plan for 2 hours a week, it will be extremely beneficial. And notice the way I'm phrasing that. I only plan for X hours per week. Not, I try to fit my planning into 10 a.m. to... No, you have to use specific language that is clear and definitive. One rule that I have for myself that's come in extremely useful, that's not Murphy's Law, Sheila, that's not what I'm looking for. It's come in extremely useful is my teaching breaks. Because if I didn't have those... Charlotte, thank you. I was thinking Parkinson's Law, but then I thought I was wrong. Is that the right one? Anyway, if I didn't have my teaching break rule, I would put myself in so many bad situations in terms of my schedule. Because we look at that Excel spreadsheet, or however you do yours, all your post-its, and when we're moving them around, it looks pretty much fine to move people. Like, you have a break in there and you're like, oh, I'll just throw one, it only fits if I put this other student on top of that student and then move the break down later. I'll just do that, it'll be fine. And in an Excel spreadsheet, it looks fine. It's like, yeah, that looks doable. But then you get to do it, and by that, however manyth student, you are miserable and you are irritable and you do snap at them, and it's not fair to them. That's the truth. And the reason you're miserable is you haven't had a break, you haven't gone to the bathroom, you haven't drunk enough water, you haven't had your coffee, whatever it is you need to do in that break, it hasn't happened. And so you're going to be crappy with them. Or you're not going to have the energy you normally have, or you're not going to notice the things you normally notice. We all get tired. We all get decaffeinated if we're caffeine addicts like me. So we need to have those breaks. And one of the best things I have done is to put in that rule. So my rule won't be the same for you, but my rule is that I teach for a maximum of 2.5 hours or 4 students, whichever comes first. So if I have 4 30-minute students, I never teach 30-minute students, but if I did, it would be 2 hours. That's it. There has to be a break there. That is the absolute maximum. Normally my breaks come more frequently than that. But when I'm in a scheduling sticky wicket, when I'm trying to figure things out and fit people together, as I have been the last 2 weeks, it's finally together. Don't let anyone change their minds. That rule is very useful. And it's come up a few times when I've been putting together this year's schedule, honestly, where I've been like, oh, I'll just put them there. And then I actually count it, and I'm like, oh no, that breaks the rule. And I know that's going to make me miserable during that time. It looks fine on the Excel spreadsheet, but it won't be fine in reality. Charlotte, my breaks are at least 15 minutes, although often they're longer if they can be, but at least 15 minutes. Now, I do everything sort of quickly, as you may have noticed. We've been hanging around for a while. So 15 minutes is enough time for me to go to the bathroom, have a few minutes to read, have a cup of coffee, maybe have a snack. That's enough for me. It might not be for you, and that is absolutely fine. Some people need longer to decompress, but 15 minutes is enough for me in a pinch. I prefer half an hour when I can put it in there. And if I do have a longer day, like on Saturdays, I work a long day, right? Because I start, this year it's going to be before 10, 9:45, and then I go all the way through to 6 p.m. So that's a long day for me, and I'll have several breaks in there, but I'll also have one big long break. So the 15 minutes is more like in the middle of a teaching afternoon. That is sufficient, just about. Okay, but the point of that was to illustrate a rule. If I didn't have that rule, I could just do things willy-nilly and it might work out fine and it might not. So set those rules for yourself. Whatever the things are that throw you off balance, that are important to you, that you want to prioritize, set clear rules for yourself. And then here's the magic secret, the magic ingredient. You ready? You have to stick to them. As if they were a rule, as if they were a law, right? As if it was the same as you breaking a red light. You do not break your rules. They're rules. That's why they have to be simple and clear, and you can't have too many of them. Okay. Now, as we've been going through this series, which by the way is based on the Teacher Tracker, for members that haven't checked that out, you might like to check it out. The Teacher Tracker is a great way to keep track of everything in your business and your teaching and keep the balance. It's what this is all about. It's all about being flamingos, right? So this is a system that we've put in place where you take a quiz about all these different areas. There are 9 of them: oral, business, planning, reading, creativity, fun, rhythm, technique, and work-life balance, because we need to consider business and all the different aspects of pedagogy and teaching together and balance these different aspects. So those are the 9 we've come up with. You take that quiz, you get your results based on how confident you are with them, and that allows you to focus on one area at a time and feel balanced about how you're progressing through your professional development. So today we've been talking about work-life balance. Next week we're actually going to be talking about planning, which is something we just mentioned a minute ago in that rule section. So we're going to be talking about planning next week. I think it's going to be perfect as many of us head towards a new school year. It's a great opportunity to try a new planning system. All throughout this series, whether we're talking about rhythm or oral or whatever, I've been sharing a few common mistakes. And so even though this is a bit of a different topic, I'm going to share 2 common mistakes with you to finish up on this life balance segment. The first biggest mistake is taking outside measures of progress. Or I should say, externally defined measures of progress. I think it's fine to have external measures of progress that are specific and measurable, and it gives you a footing on where you are. So your students' exam results or your profit or whatever it is based on the area we're looking at. That's fine. What I don't want you to do is to take someone else's advice that you make at least X per year and just take that as gospel. Or take my teaching break and say, well, Nicola says it has to be every 2 hours and I'm failing because I can't have a break every 2 hours because my schedule doesn't allow it. Or I'm failing because I need a break every 90 minutes or I feel miserable. No, remember, this is about knowing yourself. It doesn't matter if you need a break every student. If you need 5 minutes between each student, that's fine. That's you. Own it. That's who you are, and that's absolutely, totally fine. Just don't take what someone else says and embody it without analysing whether it's right for you and fits you as a person. The other big mistake that I see, and this is why I wanted to talk about my whole life balance thing, is that I see teachers trying to segment stuff too much and then feeling like they failed every time. Because stuff doesn't fit into neat little boxes in our lives. Sorry. Sometimes your kid or your dog is going to need you when you're supposed to be working in the office. Sometimes you are going to have to work that little bit later because it's recital season and you didn't anticipate something and that just happens. So don't force everything into little boxes and then so tightly that you feel like you failed because they explode, because of course they exploded. They were too full. I prefer to see it flowing and have those cues of getting off balance so that you can feel what it feels like to be in balance, to be attuned with yourself, to know where you're at, and also have those warning signs so that you adjust things when you need to. See it as that standing on one leg flamingo pose, where actually, if the wind blows this way or that way, they're adjusting their foot ever so slightly to compensate for that. I don't know if that's true, but that's what you'd have to do as a human, so we're going to go with that. Okay, lots of lovely comments coming in. Love that, Faye. My rule is I never teach later than 6:30. I'm a bit jealous. I'm not really, though. I don't mind teaching a little bit later, although I used to teach all the way up to 9, and I definitely don't do that anymore. I always finish before 7:30 now. Tara, I find that if I have to teach without breaks, because if I switch off and walk out of the room, I get distracted. Kids, dogs, emails. I personally work better like this as long as I have planned. Yep. Totally personal. Great to know that about yourself. Helen said I need more breaks when teaching online. Yes, a lot of people are feeling that. A few things on that though, Helen, which I might be useful for others listening. There was an adjustment period for sure, and I still did find online lessons very tiring even towards the end of last semester. However, a few things do help. One is making yourself look other places than the screen whenever you can. So, yes, when you're talking directly to a student, you often want to look at them like I'm doing now, and that means looking at your screen if that's where the webcam is. But I do sometimes talk while just doing this, and it doesn't look weird in a call if you say, and you're thinking about something, look over there. It looks fine. It doesn't right now because of this format, but it really does look fine and it's a-okay. Another tip I picked up recently was just to switch your camera off when you need to do a few stretches, to look away, to look at different things. So, for example, if your student is playing something and you have a couple of minutes, they're going to be playing the thing and your job is to listen to them, it is fine to switch off your camera for a second. They won't notice. Stand up and stretch or close your eyes, all of those things. But yeah, if you need more breaks when you're teaching online, schedule them. That's awesome. Can you be more specific, Bethan? I'd love to see more info or help about starting your studio, both admin side and teaching side. I'm thinking you're talking about like starting as a new teacher, but let me know if I'm wrong about that. Definitely we have a lot of stuff coming up in that arena, but more in 2021 really, because we're going to have some substantial releases in that area for new teachers. In the meantime though, if you're a member and you're looking at starting up your studio from scratch and the business side of things there, the Studio Business Reboot course is designed entirely for that. 2-hour planning time was just an example, Lee. It honestly doesn't take me that long to plan my lessons. However, that does not include games in terms of like printing them or assembling them or figuring out how they work, because I'm already creating games for VMT all the time. And so I have to print them in order to photograph them for you guys. So all of that stuff is a bit different for me. I think it's definitely doable though to plan it and execute that in 2 hours. For sure. Yeah. Makes a big difference, doesn't it, Jay? Huge. Okay, awesome. So we're going to dive into our web reviews now. I hope you'll stick around for that. We have 2 great websites to look at. These are studio websites that teachers have volunteered to have us review here on the show. And what we're going to do is look at them, talk about what they could do better and what we like about them, and learn from what they're doing and how they're marketing their studio. Even if you don't have a website, you can learn a lot from how people present themselves on their website and pick up some tips for if you're going to put together your own, of course. So we're going to look at those now and talk through them together live. If you haven't seen one of these before, I have not looked through these sites. It's going to be my first impression because that's what's useful, because that's how parents get there, right? They arrive, they have no idea what the story is with you, if they're even on the right site, if they've even found a piano teacher, if that's what they were looking for. And yeah, this is my first impression as if I were a new parent, hopefully. So this is the first site we're looking at, innovativemusicstudio.com. Now, what I wanted to try and do here was see if I refresh the page, if I can get something to pop up here. Maybe not. No, okay, we timed out of that. When I first loaded this site, she actually had a pop-up box that had a call to action on it. So, but we're going to miss out on that because I would have to open an incognito browser and we're not going to go do that. But my first impressions of the site are that I know I'm in the right place because I've got the treble clef. I think the color is quite nice and well put together and pretty consistent. I'm not convinced by this blue over here. I think that's maybe a bit drawing my eye a bit too much versus, where we want the eye to go, which is hopefully here. So this should be a bit more prominent. In general, you should pick an action color for your site so that people, when they're clicking on something, it's always the same color. So I would choose the same color for your buttons and your links. It doesn't have to be, but I think that's a neat and easy way to do it. So I think these links, change them to a unique color. They don't really have to be standard blue anymore. It's a bit of an older web convention thing. But yeah. So the button there, it has this gradient, which, looks kind of snazzy, but also doesn't really fit in with the page. So I would prefer just to see a color or to see an atom effect, which is where it looks like it's a bit 3D rather than a gradient going across, because it makes it a little bit hard to read on this side. I don't know if you guys agree, but I think that's a little bit tricky to read. I also think this needs to be a lot bigger and needs to stand out a lot more. Last thing I'll say about the homepage before we move on, second last thing, sorry, is I'm not sure you need a sidebar on a homepage. I think in general sidebars should be for blogs for the most part. So the sidebar, for those of you unfamiliar, is this sidebar, right? And it's where we put a lot of extra stuff, mostly on blogs because there isn't a lot of room. We have sort of sub-menus and stuff, and it's just a handy place to put them. I like the reviews and stuff, but I honestly think if you did a full width page and put these as part of the page, that would be more effective. However, there is some good writing here, and I like the color scheme overall. The last thing I wanted to say here was this: register for lessons, contact us. I think that's good. I think you only need one of them though, and I think it should be a button rather than a link. So let's say we click on that. Let's see what happens. Okay, it's an MMS form. Nice. Yep, perfect. Love that. That's great. Let's check out the About page. Do you know the About page is the second most visited page on most people's websites? It's funny because I don't usually go to them myself unless I'm doing a review, but people do visit them. It's something they know is going to be there and it's standard and everything, so definitely an important one. Now, I think it's unfortunate that we don't have a picture of the teacher here. It's great that it's about the studio. I think that's fine, but I think we need to see the person behind it. So I would love a picture there, smiling person at a piano, so I can see and imagine, oh, this lovely lady or this fun guy is going to teach my kid, and they look like they're professional and fun and whatever way you want to look. But it just helps people to picture their relationship with you when you're there, right? Showing your face. Good to have the info on the location and all of that. Let's go to the blog just to see. Oh, great. Okay. One of the worries with blogs on studio websites is that people won't keep them up enough. And this one is definitely published often enough that I don't, there's no question. That's great. This was in June, which is a little while ago, but, taking the summer off is not unusual, so I think that's great. Yeah, I love it. Okay, I would love to see more of these photos sprinkled throughout your homepage as well. Like lovely smiling student, kid having fun in her, with her guitar on the floor. All of those realness photos I would put there. Ooh, we've hit a bit of a funny zone there. The styling changed. I would make sure that goes back so that it looks the same as the rest of the site. This is just doubling up that, which is fine. Again, I just questioned those buttons. And current job openings. Yep, that's fine. Okay. Shop. I don't know if there's anywhere else sensible to put this, but I would maybe put it as a sub-menu item if you can, just because it's a bit distracting to me as a parent and it's nothing really to do with me. So yeah. Okay, so that's my main thing, is about the colouring and the buttons, and possibly that sidebar. Hopefully that's useful. Any questions in the chat, just let me know. I'm going to go on to the next one. This is Mindy Rawlinson, Piano School. And I love this homepage, first off, because we've 2 photos above the fold. Before I scroll anywhere, I have 2 photos of kids having fun with music, which is exactly what I want to see. They look great. This one for some reason is crouching down, but I still prefer to see that. I prefer to see a kid with odd piano technique having fun, that is your real student, than a stock photo where they look pristine and perfect, but it's not your studio. So I think that's awesome. I love the bucket drumming here too. That's great. And you've got a testimonial right there as well. Maybe they make this photo a little bit bigger, just so I can see it a bit more, because that's really important to have. Right. And we have this get started. Again, if you could make that a bit bigger, a bit more prominent. I like the white styling. I wouldn't actually change the color in this case, but I would make it bigger. I would have a hover effect so that when I hover over it, it changes color. Just swapping the colors would be great. And maybe the text bold or a little bit bigger would be awesome, just so it draws my eye a little bit more. Let's see what happens when I click on it. Okay, I need to choose group classes. Loving all the photos. This is all great. Okay, I didn't mean to click there, sorry. Good. Yes, nice and simple. Simple is usually best. I know where I'm going, I know what the info is, I know I'm in the right place as a parent, and I can picture my child learning there. And if I'm a super serious, classically minded, exam focused parent, I'm not going to send my kid to your studio, but I'm guessing you don't want them, so that's awesome. If I am a parent who wants fun lessons, who maybe is interested in the whole peer group experience, who loves the idea of their kid jamming and having fun, I'm going to send them there, and I think they're going to fit right in. So yeah, and I love that testimonial as well. Just make it a bit bigger. So yeah, very minor changes there, Mindy. I think just great work, and that little tweak I think will make a difference to people actually getting in touch with you, just because they'll know where to go to sign up straight away. So those are our web reviews for today. Some great sites out there. If you want to add your website to be considered for review, you can add it in our Facebook group. So Vibrant Music Studio Teachers, there is a pinned post, an announcement. So up the top, in one of those posts up the top, there's a post where you can add your site. I pick 2 at random every week, totally random. So it's just luck of the draw, and I review them here on the show. As I said, we are doing Mondays here from now on. So, yeah, Mondays at 4 p.m. my time. That is whatever it was today for you. That's the time we're sticking with. Tara had a question there about the websites. Do you know a way of adding more photos to the homepage when using My Music Staff for creating your website, or is that a question for MMS? Yeah, I would say that's a question for MMS. I'm not familiar with their web platform all that much, Tara, so I would get in touch with them. Their support staff is always lovely though, aren't they? They're the greatest. I love them. So I'm sure they'll be happy to help you. I even had a weird issue on my site one time and they jumped in and fixed it for me within my site, which is not run by them. So amazing. Can't recommend them highly enough. They're lovely. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this tour of work-life balances and life balances and games and websites. We've covered a whole heap of stuff today, and I hope it was useful for you. If it was, and if you like my rambling style, I hope you will. Hopefully, it wasn't too rambling. I'm only messing. Hopefully, you will come back next Monday. I will be back from my little staycation. It's not really a staycation when you travel a little bit within your own country, but I'll be back from my journey and I will be refreshed and revitalized and ready to talk about planning, because I'll then have 2 weeks until my kidlets come back for the new year. So I'm going to be in full on planning mode, and I hope you will join me for that discussion then. It's going to be a really fun one. In the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. Whether you're climbing a mountain like me, or teaching a few students, or just sitting on a couch in peace. I hope you have a great one. I'll see you then.